Hello, thank you for watching. Today I'm going to be talking about the difference between judgment, which is not good, and discernment, which is very good. If you don't know who I am, my name is Ben Ralston, and I'm a healer, and I'm a yoga teacher, and I am a spiritual guide and a coach, and I run an online community called the Inner Circle, where I combine all of the different things that I do to help people in an ongoing way to get to where they want to get to. And well, not to get to where they want to get to, but to fulfill their potential, basically. That's what it's all about. Hello, folks. Thank you for joining. If you are here watching now live, then give me a love heart, preferably, and say hello. Let me know where you're from, where you're watching from. So, judgment is what happens when we are looking at the world through a filter. And while I was thinking about what I was going to say on this video, the example of sort of walking down the street and in a town or a city and seeing somebody homeless, somebody that's lying on the ground, maybe surrounded by a few beer cans or some alcohol containers, maybe lying on newspapers, begging for money. And the reason I'm using that example is because for most of us, when we see something fairly extreme, like somebody living rough, somebody homeless, it's very easy to understand that we have a series of judgments that usually kind of spring forth from the dark recesses of our subconscious mind. Usually when people see somebody homeless, one of the first things that they think is that the person is probably using drugs or alcohol. And that's one of the main reasons why people, whether it's right or wrong, and it can be both, that's one of the main reasons why people refuse to give financial support to people that are homeless, is because the most common thing that people will say is, well, how do I know that they're not just going to go and spend this money on drugs? It's a good question. But the point is that we encounter some situation or some person or some event, and we don't see with clean eyes. We don't actually see what's happening. We see through this filter. And the filter is formed and created by a part of the brain that is between the eyes and the part of the brain that receives the information and processes it. So before we receive the information, that information is being colored by the filter. And that is judgment. And the reason it's bad is because, oh, hello. Hello, Mirella. Hello, Rosanna. The reason it's bad is because it's bad for me as an individual if I do that. Why the hell is there a big snowflake thing on the screen? I don't know. It's bad for me, it's bad for us as individuals when we do that, because we're not actually having an encounter with the person or the situation in front of us. We're having an encounter with what we think we already know. In other words, with our filter system. And that can be really dangerous. You know, it can be mildly dangerous, or dangerous is the wrong word. It can be mildly negative, let's say, because we're not really dealing with what's what. But it can actually be extremely dangerous if we're in a situation where we really need to see what's going on in front of us and to be aware and to know and understand, but we're not because of the filter. So what's discernment? Discernment is something completely different. Discernment means knowing what's actually in front of you, knowing not seeing through a filter, but seeing clearly what's actually going on in front of your own eyes. And again, while I was thinking about talking about this subject, something else popped into my mind, which is a quote from the Bible, in which Jesus said, and if you're watching me for the first time, I'm not religious, I'm not a Bible basher, God botherer, although I am spiritual, let's say. Anyway, there's a lot of good things in the Bible, and there's some bad things. And one of the good things is that Jesus apparently said, unless thine eye be single. And now I've forgotten the rest of the quote, so let me look it up quickly. Unless thine eye be single. If thine eye be single, thy body will be full of light. So what does that mean? Hello, Susan. Hello, everybody. If you're watching, please say hello. Feel free to leave a love heart, which is nice, and it shows me that you're here, and feel free to ask questions at any point as well. So, if thine eye be single, thy body will be full of light. And I'm just going to quickly see if there's another translation, because I'm not quite crazy about that one. Let's have a look at this one. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Let's copy paste that and stick it into a comment. Okay. Hey, Bex. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. So, judgment is about 3D living. It's about making a judgment or an assessment of what is around us or in front of us based on past mental assessments, what we've learned from the past. Discernment is seeing with fresh eyes. And there's another word, as I'm saying this, that occurs to me, which has a very similar meaning, because the word respect literally means to look again or to see with fresh eyes. So discernment is, now that I think about it, is very much associated with respect, because you can only discern the truth of something if you have a sense of respect for it. In other words, if you are seeing it with fresh eyes. Whereas on the contrary, if you're seeing through the filter which is created from past memories and past experiences and therefore not fresh, what you do is you judge. Hey, Kevin. So somebody asked me this question, and I'm going to try and find it. It might take me a moment. And it was in response to this kind of weird thing that happened yesterday, this conversation that happened on my Facebook pages yesterday when I talked about vaginal mesh. And quite a lot of people got very upset and were accusing me of things and running away and, I don't know, leaving my page and et cetera, which happens quite a lot with me, and I usually welcome it because it's good to cull sometimes, the weeding in the garden. And I don't mean that to sound, I hope that doesn't sound insensitive or nasty or mean or lacking in compassion, because it isn't, But the thing is, if you're not chasing fame and you're speaking the truth, then people get upset. That's just inevitable. And in a way, the more upset you make some people, the better you know you're actually on the right track. Because you can't, what's the expression? You can't make an omelette without breaking some eggs. Here we go. I found the question nice and fast. So, Sandra Grace Johnson, let's see. Hey, Rachel. Hello, Terry. There we go. Cool. Okay, so the question that somebody asked was, yo, I've been chipping away at the judgment versus discernment question for a while now. It feels like empathy, as in I'm too close to judge, plays a part, but clarity eludes me here. Do you care to elaborate? Well, okay, so let's just clarify something. Empathy, the word empathy is a very, very, very misunderstood term. And it's one of these sort of buzzwords that became thrown around everywhere, left, right, and center in the kind of spiritual media. And nowadays, there are many people, it's almost fashionable to say, I'm an empath. And the truth is, everybody is empathic. Well, not everybody. Everybody that's not a psychopath is empathic to some degree or another. Empathy is probably a natural human trait that does need to be developed like all other natural human traits. But most people have it to some degree or another. And I don't feel, to answer this question of Sandra's, I don't feel that empathy really does have anything much, let me just think about it, to do with judgment or discernment. If anything, empathy is something that can cloud your discernment and push you into a judgment. Discernment is free, I would say, from empathy. Discernment is seeing things as they are. And empathy, I would say empathy really doesn't have much to do with it. So that was the question. And yeah, I was talking about this conversation that I was having on my Facebook pages. And I saw something that I've seen many, many, many times before. Some of the people that were upset about me asking questions about vaginal mesh, and if you're watching and you don't know what vaginal mesh is, let me bring you up to speed because I found out all about it last night. It's when somebody with a vagina has had some kind of prolapse. I'm not quite clear on what the prolapse is. It seems like it's the prolapse of the uterus or the cervix. Some people are calling it a vaginal prolapse, so I'm not quite sure what the technicality of it is, but it's some kind of prolapse. And then mesh is surgically implanted to keep everything in place. That's by the by, but that's what the conversation was about. And, you know, basically some people got very upset. Some women got very upset that I was asking the question, the way in which I was asking it, the way in which I was responding to some of the comments and so on. And that's what happened. And what I saw is that, again, and I've seen this so many times, people get upset. They're triggered by, in this case, triggered by the fact that a man is talking about something that they feel, I suppose, uncomfortable about. And their discernment gets completely clouded and they go into judgment. Hello, Tamara. They go into judgment, and Mary and everyone else that's watching, they go into judgment and they don't see clearly. And in the case of last night, what happened was some of these people that were kind of trying to argue with me said things like, you're obviously extremely triggered. And I was like literally sitting here with a big grin on my face, just in a state that is much closer to bliss than it was to being triggered. So what I realized is that there is this huge gulf between judgment and discernment. They're actually almost like two opposite. And as the question demonstrated, very often people tend to think that they're kind of similar, and I don't quite know what the difference is between the two. But the fact is that they're remarkably different. Judgment is when we project our preconceived ideas onto what's in front of us, and we judge it based on data or information that we already have. And discernment is when you allow yourself to know, when you're able to see clearly what's really going on. So the reason I was talking about this quote from the Bible earlier, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. It's a kind of a hard quote to get your head around. But what it means to me is that when you see clearly, and you cannot see clearly when you're looking through your eyes, what we do with our eyes is we look. And when we're looking, we're judging. We're actually looking for something in the object that we're looking at. Does that make sense? The alternative is to see. To see. Seeing is different from looking, because when you're seeing, you are open and you are accessing a wisdom that comes from the light of the body, what Jesus refers to in this case as the light of the body. The light of the body is the eye. In other words, seeing and the wisdom of the body are intimately connected. So, hello Matilda, hello Michelle, thank you all for watching. And I just want to say, while I've got your guys' attention, I have just started a really beautiful new way of working with people that I'm really excited about. And I'm going to paste a link, because I think you guys will all be excited about it too, especially those of you that have been following my work for a while. There's an opportunity now to work with me like every week, ongoing, quite, basically to get as much as you can out of my skills and my gifts. And very cheap, because for a long time now, I haven't wanted to charge money for the healing work that I do. And this is the way in which I'm now combining community and all of the work that I do, and moving all of this stuff to a point where I really don't need to rely on the financial system in the way that most of us do. So have a look at this link. After the video, have a look at this link. It's called the Inner Circle, and the Inner Circle is my online community. So yeah, there's that. So where was I? Well, let's take a pause and just read some of these comments that I've been neglecting. Okay, so Rachel says, I feel there's been a new cage agenda against judgment, which is designed to make us unable to discern what's right or wrong for us. Yeah. I'm an INFJ, so judging is part of my way of interpreting reality. It makes me a good designer, and it helps me navigate other dimensions. Yes and no are valuable. That is a really good point. We have been, those of us that have been engaged in the kind of new age spiritual movement of the last, say, 10 years, have definitely been subjected. I'm sure all of you watching have been subjected at some point to this idea, you mustn't judge. Judging is bad. And it's been done in such a way as to make people feel like any kind of judgment call is a bad thing to do, and we should just accept everybody and, peace, love, and light and all that. And in a way it's true, because yeah, it's not good to judge, because when you judge, as I said earlier, you're not seeing things as they really are. But to throw the baby, which is discernment, out with the bathwater, which is judgment, is a huge mistake, because the fact is we live in a world that is about polarity. There is good and love and light in this world, but there's also a lot of evil and a lot of darkness. And if you don't discern, if you don't see what's what, then you're kind of adrift at sea without a compass, without a way to navigate. And that's not good. Mary, if you don't have volume, it looks like that's just you, because nobody else has said anything. I think everyone else has got it. So check you haven't got a microphone plugged in, something like that. So the question now is like, well, okay, so I'm not going to judge, I'm going to discern. But how do you get into a place of discernment? Okay, so now it's a process like everything else. All of this healing work and personal development work and spiritual practice is a process, because we're going from old paradigm 3D unawareness. We're hopefully consciously and intentionally working towards and moving towards what is sometimes known as 5D, higher awareness, right? And that isn't an overnight thing, as much as we'd all like to take a pill or press a button and wake up the next morning enlightened. It doesn't work like that. So the process of moving out of judgment into discernment is a gradual one. And really what it's all about, if I can sort of describe it in a nutshell, it's about awakening the intuition, the inner guidance system. Because the intuition comes from the wisdom and the awareness of the body. As I say many times, the body remembers everything. Every cell in the body contains the memory of all of our ancestors and the whole of the earth, millions of years of it. So once you're able to tap into that wisdom, the light of the body, then, and that intuition, then you're able to discern what's what. And as you tune into it more and more, you get better and better at it, to the point where you can begin to discern in almost every situation. And I want to share with you something that happened to me just the other day, which made me realize that I'm not quite there yet. So I was walking across the street, and it's a little town that I'm living in, and there's a speed bump, sleeping policeman, they're known as, a little bit further up the road. And as I'm walking, or ambling, perhaps is the right expression, as I was ambling across the street, it's a nice sunny day, enjoying my walking and enjoying being back in England and just enjoying life, this car went over the speed bump and then accelerated very fast at me. And if I had not, well, like if the car had kept going at the same speed and I hadn't jumped out of the way, it would have hit me. But I said to myself, I'm not gonna, I wasn't scared, and I felt like he's going to stop. And I knew that if he did keep going at the same speed, I still had time to jump out of the way. So I just carried on ambling and smiling. And then, so he slammed his brakes on in order to not commit an act of murder. And then he started screaming. It was these two young guys in the car, probably about mid-20s, something like that. And this driver started really yelling at me, "You fuck, you stupid," like really not very pleasant. And for a moment, I felt some fear coming up. And in that moment, I lost my ability to discern. My discernment was suddenly gone. And I was looking at the situation, trying to make a judgment call, which I couldn't do. And I recognized like I'm not equipped at this moment in time to discern clearly what's going on. So I just started to walk away. And he carried on screaming. And then the fear dissipated, and then I was back in discernment. So I just turned on my heel and I walked back and I stuck my head in the window. And I dealt with the situation in a really kind of cool, clear-headed, precise, skillful way, and was quite proud of myself. But the point is that in that moment in between where I was afraid, I lost the ability to be intuitive and in discernment. And I hope that makes sense, because what I'm trying to share is that, you see, discernment is about the third eye. It's about the intuition, and it's about awakening the ability to see clearly. And fear is the shadow of the root chakra, right down at the other end of the energetic scale, so to speak. So the thing that prevents us from discerning is fear. The thing that pushes us into judgment is fear. And so I want to keep this as a short video, and just really to say that the way to develop your ability to discern is to deal with your fear, which is to say, carry on, continue on the healing path, continue with your personal development work, continue with your spiritual practice in action, and gradually eliminate fear and all fear-based ways of living. And I can say with some certainty that if you continue with that, and the more committed you are to it, the more you'll develop your ability to discern. And it's such a gift, because all of a sudden you can find yourself in situations like that whereas before it would have really shaken you for the whole day perhaps, and it doesn't. It's maybe a few seconds of out of balance. So yeah, thank you for watching. Check out the Inner Circle. The link is here. You can find it on my website. For the price of a few cups of coffee, you can see webinars and get newsletters and access the resources page on my website, and basically get ongoing support from me and from the community that I'm building, which is going to be a really good one. So I think that's of great value. So I hope you'll be interested. Before I go, let me just see what some of these comments are as well. So Rachel says, seeing is receiving. Yes, and discernment is the facility of judgment. We need to judge in order to steer. It's not about preconceived judgment that's programmed, but inner discernment that then chooses what we are here for. Yes, exactly. It's how we navigate. There's another thing to say about judgment, which is that judgment is kind of connected, isn't it, to justice? Like we have justice systems which are governed over by judges. And inherent in that is a kind of moral judgment, right? The judge is the one that sits in the court and passes judgment based on some kind of moral or ethical set of codes. And that's inherently wrong. It's inherently wrong. And that kind of justice system is always going to be flawed. And there are always going to be great injustices that are created as a result of it, because we can't really judge. We can discern. We can see clearly what's what, but it's not our place to judge it. And as soon as you bring yourself down to the level of judgment, then you are instantly and automatically lowering yourself onto the level of the thing or the person that you're judging. Whereas when you discern, you can see what's what with love, with compassion, without putting that situation or person in the box of your judgment. So it's possible to discern somebody and something, to see clearly where, for example, that person is at, and to know them, but to leave them be. When you discern, there's a detachment. As soon as you judge something, you're attached to it. And I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but it's a kind of a subtle thing. Francisca says, I have more evil than good in my mind. That's awesome. That's why I listen to positive. I need it like a fix. Well, that's so good, because everybody has evil. And it's not that you have more evil than good. It's, you may have more evil thoughts than good thoughts at the moment, right? But it's not that you are more evil than good. We're all predisposed to be evil or good or any other thing. And the difference in how we turn out is a combination of our choice and our environment. So if you grow up as a child in a particular environment, then you don't have much choice. If you experience a lot of trauma as a child, then without any choice, you're going to have some difficulties. And if you want to have a good life, you're going to have to navigate those difficulties and sort of circumvent them or overcome them. And it's very, very good to be aware of the negative, the evil, the dark, whatever thoughts that you have going on inside you, because we all have them. And this is the meaning of shadow work. And there is no progress on this path without dealing with your darkness, without dealing with your hate, your anger, your vitriol, your bitterness, your jealousy, your laziness, the deadly sins. There is no progress. And the progress that you do make on this path is directly proportionate to the extent to which you're prepared to deal with your own shit. So I'm happy to hear somebody say, hey, I have more evil than good. Because if you were to discern the majority of people on the street, that's true. That's true. Most people that I see have way more darkness going on, bouncing around in their heads, than they do have like love and light and goodness and compassion. Because the truth is that most of us alive today are severely retarded in terms of our energetic and emotional development. Most people are stuck in the first chakra, fear. And it's fear that gives rise to what you call evil. And it's lack of fear that gives rise to love. So to you, Francisco, I would say you're on the right track. All you have to do, and join the inner circle, because that's pretty much what I'm doing. It's like 70%, 80% of my work is helping people uncover their shadows, excavate them, see them, integrate them, level up. That's what it's all about. And you can do it for £20 a month, you know, and get this massive, massive support. So, yeah. Thank you, Rachel. Love your way too. Susan says, exactly, lowering that vibration to there is not good. Keep your center. Yeah. Hello, Bojana. Hello, Nicole. Hello, Jackie, Joseph. Rachel says, yeah, I think language is hijacked, so it seems the judging is morality, but we use judgment in sport, special awareness, etc. I think it's been misinterpreted and ironically judged. Rachel, I would encourage you to allow yourself to see the word judgment as a bad thing and to replace it with the word discernment. So when you're saying we need to judge, don't. See things as they are. See clearly. And it's the most important for people that do the kind of work that you do, because 90%, 99%, 99.9% of stuff that I see on like Facebook and social media is I discern that it's either complete nonsense or there's a big thread of garbage in it. And finding something or someone that is really in alignment is so rare today. And the only way I can find it is by discerning it. Yeah, exactly. Self-judgment. Like you would never say self-judgment is a good thing, would you? However, discerning your motivations, discerning your shadows is for sure is a good thing. So yeah, try to replace the word judgment, bin it, and bring in discernment. See how that goes. So Jackie Joseph says, I think we need to know your customer, or Ryan self. Do you mean thyself? And be grateful for your good bits, own your evil bits. I do actually believe in that. That shit is there to help learn. I think it's like this. Humanity is in a place now where we've been living and really swimming in, let's just use the word evil, for the last few thousand years. And realistically, truthfully, most people alive today are slaves. The definition of slavery is something like, you know, working and doing things that you don't really want to be doing in order to satisfy or please someone else, right? And that's basically what the majority of human beings are doing. Even many so-called healers and spiritual teachers and people like that are really in it for the money. And anytime anyone is doing something motivated primarily for money, whether they know it or not, most people that think they're not actually are, they're slaves. Because slaves to what? Slaves to the financial system. which means slaves to the banks, which means slaves to the bankers. That's the bottom line truth of the situation that we're in. So, as I said before, a lot of the stuff that we think is evil is not really evil. It just comes from fear. It's decisions and choices that are made from fear. And all we have to do, as I said, is to eliminate and eradicate our fear. Face it, deal with it, embrace it, integrate it. And every time you do that, you level up. And what happens is it's like getting in the bath and washing yourself energetically. You come out cleaner. And the cleaner you get, the more in alignment you come with the ultimate reality of this existence, which is love, which is creative, which is good, which is expansive, which is just life. It's just life. Life is this continual expansion, this continual process of life begetting more life. And so the reason I'm saying that is to try to help people to not get too attached to this idea that I've got some evil stuff inside me. It's not really that. It's fear. It's just fear. So there is another kind of evil, but we won't go into that today. Bojana says an old Cherokee told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside people. Yeah, two wolves. Good story. Which wolf are you feeding? Yeah. Okay, so Rachel's given the definition of judgment, the ability to make considered decisions or come to sensible conclusions. Yeah, I know that's what they tell us, but I don't think it is that, because you cannot make a considered decision or come to a sensible conclusion without discernment. You cannot know the truth in something or someone, the truth of something or someone, without seeing clearly when thine eye is single. And you will always be projecting something and therefore not seeing it, and then inherently unable to make a considered decision or a sensible conclusion. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Elise. Hello, Jean. Hello, Ivana. Ivana says, I just think that judgment is misplaced discernment. Yeah, we use discernment to navigate through our own inner worlds and okay, yeah. So wrapping this up, thank you very much for watching. Check out my website, the Inner Circle tab on my website, benralston.org. And from now on, those of you that are watching this, my live videos are going to be shorter. They won't be much longer than this. If you've watched them before, you'll know that sometimes I can talk for hours. And from now on, I'll be doing a webinar every week, which will be long like these, with question and answer and with live healings. So if you're on that, if you're in the Inner Circle community, you can be part of that. You can see the live healings, you can get the live healings, you can ask the questions, get the answers. The platform we'll be using is on Zoom, so everyone will have a video. If you want to be seen, you can be on the video. You can ask questions with audio. I'm super excited about it because it's going to be like this, but more interactive. So it's going to be awesome. And you'll have a community of, courageous, committed, heart-centered warriors at your back. And nothing's really more valuable than that. So, lots of love. See you soon.